Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, coming to you 6 days a week as we interview whitetail experts and hear their traditions and personal stories of the hunt. Learn more about the latest gear, discover proven tips, and the latest strategies so you can make your next hunt a success. Now, here's your host, Bruce Hutchin.
As host to Whitetail Rendezvous, I want to say thank you. Thank you for almost 100,000 iTunes downloads. Thank you to the 300 guests who've been on the show. And thank you to over 30,000 followers on social media. Couldn't do this show without every single one of you. And secondly, sometimes the sound quality isn't radio quality, isn't recording room quality. It is what it is. People might be in a tree stand, a box blind. They might be sitting in their pickup truck on a hillside, or they might be traveling to and from a blind or home from work. They're all over. And because of that, sometimes the quality isn't what you would expect or would have hoped for.
This is Whitetail Rendezvous Podcast, episode number 304.
Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous. This is your host, Bruce Hutchin. We're heading out to Pennsylvania. We're going to connect with Matt Pitzer, who's on the field staff for Keystone Wild Outdoors with Steve Rocco. Talking to Matt, he just loves whitetail hunting, but he's got some really great insights about hunting in a very populous state where it's hard for bucks to grow big. Well, he's got some interesting insights that he wants to share today. So listen up to Matt Pitzer. Hey, listeners, don't forget to text 33444 Food Plot for your free Food Plot ebook.
Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous. We got Matt Pitzer, who's a pro staffer with Keystone Wild Outdoors in southeast of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Matt, welcome to the show.
Hey, Bruce, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Well, I do too, and I'm thankful to Steve Rocco from Keystone Wild Outdoors for recommending you and asking you to be on the show, because I just love what Steve's doing. We had a good show with him and good interview with him. So thanks for taking your time out and being on the show.
No problem. I appreciate it. I'm excited to talk to you.
So let's start right off. And how'd you get involved with Steve Rocco and Keystone Outdoors?
Well, this summer I was very fortunate to become part of a few field staff teams, and one of them I joined with Scent Crusher, their field staff team, and Steve was a member of it. And I saw through our contacts with there on our Facebook page that he lived within about 20 minutes of where I'm at. And I saw some of the work that he was doing with a hunt club that does charity work for kids with disabilities. They take them out on hunts. And I really just wanted to get to know him and get to meet him. Somebody like that can give back to the community and get kids involved in the outdoors was somebody that I wanted to meet and get to know. And I actually got to, talk with him and put an application in to be on his field staff team for Keystone Wild Outdoors. It's a show that comes out this December 31st on the Hunt Channel at 8 o'clock. And that's how I got hooked up with Steve. We're getting some filming done, trying to get a show put together, and bringing some action-packed footage this year.
Now, how many people on the pro staff for Keystone Wild?
I think overall between the pro staff and the field staff team, I think we have 14 or 15 members, if I'm not mistaken.
So the listeners out there, Matt, some ask me, what does it mean to be on a pro staff? So in your own words, what do you do for Keystone Wild Outdoors to be on a pro staff?
Really, to be on a pro staff, different companies have different words for it, but really it's more promotional. I'm part of the show. My job as a pro staff member is to represent Keystone Wild Outdoors and to get the word out about the show. I also film my own hunts, and hopefully they're good enough and I can make the actual show itself. But my real job is just to promote it and to be a good, ambassador for Keystone Wild Outdoors, and get as many people involved in our show as we can. We're really excited about what we're bringing to the Hunt Channel this year, and that's pretty much what you need to do. I mean, it's more promotional than anything, but it's a great opportunity. It's led me to meet so many different people and talk with different people, yourself included. I wouldn't have had this opportunity if it wouldn't have been for being a pro staff member with Keystone Wild Outdoors. So I'm extremely grateful for all that it's brought me so far.
That's great. And for the people, promotional, how do you personally promote Keystone Wild Outdoors?
Right now, we're primarily promoting it through social media. Social media has become such a big area where you can promote things and show people it. Facebook, Twitter. That's primarily where we're promoting it. And I'm also, anytime I talk to different people, the hunting community is a very tight-knit community. You're constantly running into different hunters and hearing their stories and telling them your stories. And, you just talk to people, say, hey, we got a show coming out on the Hunt Channel December 31st. Give us a like, check out our Facebook page, and let us know what we can do to make the show better. We're always looking for feedback on it.
Or do you go to shows at all, or do you talk it up as archery functions or at archery shops?
I don't know if we're going to make any shows this year. This is the first year that we've got Keystone Wild Outdoors put together. But we definitely try and talk it up to different archery shops. I've got several archery shops local to us. So anytime I'm in there, and I'm a big bow hunter, so I'm constantly in an archery shop playing around with my setup. But anytime I'm in there, just talk to different people and try and get the word out.
Well, thanks for that. And you mentioned self-filming and wanting to learn how to film for your son. Why is that important to you?
I have two amazing sons. Tanner will be 4 in March, and Colton will be 2 in May. And I didn't actually get into hunting until, I was almost 20 years old. My family business is seasonal, and fall and winter is our busy time of the year. So I didn't have those traditions with my dad. We did a little bit more fishing and stuff like that in the spring. But I wanted to get into self-filming this year so that when my sons are old enough to go out into the woods, I can film it and have that memory and not be bad at it. Self-filming's it's a lot harder than it looks. You watch these shows and you think, that doesn't look that hard. Until you take a camera out there and you're trying to catch an animal that doesn't listen. It's not like you can tell it, hey, stop right here, you're in frame. So I wanted to become good at it. And that way, when my sons are old enough to go out, I can have those memories and I can watch them back and see their reactions and just remember it.
Well, that's great. What kind of equipment do you use for your filming?
This year, I'm using a Canon Vixia HF-G10 camcorder. It's an older style camera. I bought it used off of eBay. But with that and a shotgun mic and some wireless mics, those are my primary cameras. I do try to run a secondary camera, like a GoPro. I try to run one of those, get a different angle on it. And, that's just about it. That's really the two cameras that I run with some audio equipment on it.
And all in, what do you got, less than $500?
No, I actually put a good bit into my camera is I want to say I call it a prosumer camera. So the camera itself was about $500. I probably have $800-900 into everything. I tried to find it used. Probably a little bit more than what most people would want to put into it. I was pretty confident that this was something that I was going to enjoy doing. But for anybody that's looking to get into self-filming, you can get all these camcorders now record in HD. You can get a camera, for a couple $100, especially if you start looking used and get into it for probably about $500 or $600. That's always a good starting point. But I tend to jump into things where I jump into them, full bore. So I probably spent, like I said, about $800-900 to get everything set up.
Now, how does filming make you a better hunter? Because, people talk to me, Bruce, the days you put in the field, you should start filming. I said, I don't want another piece of technology where I have to think about that. I just want to put a big buck down if it's a mature buck coming through. So, help me understand that.
Well, I don't know if it necessarily makes you a better hunter. It comes down to what you really want to get out of self-filming. I kind of broke the cardinal rule of self-filming this year. The buck that I shot this year in archery season, I didn't capture it on film. It happened so fast, and I thought I had him in frame, and when he came in, he was 20 yards straight in front of me, stopped, picked me out, and at that point I kind of decided to forget about the camera. I was more interested, like you said, in putting that buck down. So you have to, it's a give and take. You have to decide whether you really want to commit to it, and sometimes it can cost you a deer. I should have, if I really wanted to get that on film this year, and I was disappointed that I didn't, I probably wouldn't have shot that buck. I probably would have had to pass him, because by the time I got him into frame and followed him, he would have been running away from me.
And that's interesting, and I guess from my discussion with you and other people, it's a 50-50 split, and folks, you can let me know if you disagree, that if it's the right buck, it's a buck on your hit list, the buck's going to go down. The other people say, I'm going to film them, and if I miss the shot, even though it's on my hit list, so be it. So it's interesting. I'd like to hear from people. So email me or reach out to me at Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, and let's talk about that. Let's talk about your hunting tradition. I know it started a little later in life, but do you go to the Pennsylvania hunting camp?
Yeah, it actually, like I said, my hunting career didn't start until I was 19, 20 years old. I was already graduated from high school, and I was with my two best friends at the time at a local community college, and we did everything together. We were always together, and then all of a sudden, every fall, they would disappear. And I kept wondering, why don't I have my friends anymore? And I found out that they were going up to his camp outside of Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania. And I got tired of being left at home. So I decided, I talked to my friend Jono. It's his family that has the camp. I said, hey, I want to learn. Teach me how to hunt. I want to get involved with this. And Jono and his brother Nick and his dad Rick were amazing. They were so cool to let me come up to their camp and to take time out of their hunting to show me, what to do, the right way to do things. I mean, I really didn't even have a whole lot of experience with guns at that point. So the first few years of rifle season, they would sit with me and work as hard as they could to get me a deer. But without them, I don't know if I would have got into it. And I'm at the point now where I can't really even imagine not being able to hunt. So it was because they went up to their camp and I didn't want to sit at home not doing anything that got me involved in the outdoors. And it was so awesome that those guys took time out of their seasons to teach me and show me how to properly hunt.
Listeners, that's an important point, and if you're not passing it forward, so somebody gets you started. Otto Knight and Harry Scher and Dick Rogers were the guys that got me started hunting, and Dick and Harry for whitetail hunting, and I'm thankful for that. And that's why one reason Whitetail Rendezvous podcast exists, so I can pay it forward with guys like you. So how are you paying it forward, Matt?
I'm trying to pay it forward. My wife this is her first year bow hunting. She's actually hunted longer than I have. Her family was into the outdoors, and she has her family has a camp, and she's been rifle hunting since she was 13 years old. But this was the first year that I got her involved with bow hunting. So I'm really enjoying her learning it and teaching her how to do it, and I look forward to passing it on to my sons and just anybody that I run into. I always try to learn from everybody I meet. I try and hopefully teach them something that maybe they don't know.
Thanks for that. Let's switch it back around to the buck you did take this fall, and tell us about the hunt.
Well, I hunt two local farms here by me in Greensburg, Pennsylvania, and I had hunted those the first few weeks of archery season this year, and I hadn't seen a deer. I didn't see a buck. I didn't see a doe. It was really starting to get frustrating, so I decided to go up to Jono's camp outside of Punxsutawney. We have a lot of good bucks up there and a lot of deer, and I just always enjoy getting away for a day to go to camp. So I went up there on a Friday afternoon, went to my tree stand, which we already had hung up, and my tree stand up there is set in between. It's a transitional area. in front of my tree stand is about 100 yards or so out is a field, and then they walk through there and come past my tree stand to behind me, a couple hundred yards is the bedding area. So Friday afternoon, I went up and I saw 4 or 5 does that night. And I actually missed a doe that night. I decided I was going to take a doe, and I had a doe come in, and she stopped at about 30 yards out and got lucky that there was a twig in front of her I didn't see. I sent the arrow down and just hit the twig and went straight over her back. So I went back out to that same stand Saturday morning and had seen a couple of different bucks walk about 50 or 60 yards out in front of me. And they never came in, weren't really responding to any calls or anything. And about 9 o'clock that morning, I had a doe walk out in front of me, again, about 50, 60 yards. And I noticed right behind her was a buck. And I could see he had decent spread on him. And I thought, well, man, this kind of sucks. I already know these deer are just going to stay 50, 60 yards out. I'm in a lot of brush in there. No chance of a shot at that range. And so I was just watching him, and all of a sudden that buck, for some reason, just broke off of that doe and just came sprinting at my tree stand. I don't know what caused it, but he caught me off guard, and that's why I wasn't able to get him on camera. And he came in and stopped at 20 yards, and before I could get I think what got me busted was drawing my bow back. And when I drove my bow back, he went to run away from me. But at that point, it was too late and, made a shot on him. Wasn't the shot that I was hoping for. I wound up actually gut shooting that deer. I think he took one extra step when I let my arrow go. But I watched him run off about 50, 60 yards and just lay down. So after about an hour or so, I got down and walked the complete opposite direction of that deer. I knew that he was hurting pretty bad, but I didn't want to bump him or go looking. So we gave him about 6 hours before we went back and started looking for a blood trail. And I was fortunate enough to recover him. It was a nice 9-point, good buck for up in our area. We're kind of recovering this year. We had a lot of really nice bucks last year, but unfortunately the rifle hunters took care of most of them last year. So he was a young buck, but I'm not a particular big trophy hunter. I was happy with him and happy to take him home.
Now, let's go back. I'm going to take some pieces apart now. So you saw the buck lay down, you walked the other way, and when you were walking away, did he move, lift his head, do anything at all?
Not that I could see now. In my tree stand, when directly in front of me, about 100 yards is the field, and straight behind me, a couple hundred yards is their bedding area. To my left is just a briar patch, just a thicket that you really can't see into. You can see maybe 10 yards or so into it. So that's where he went to run when I shot him. So when I shot him, he immediately took off, ran 20 yards or so, and then stopped and just slowly started walking away. And he walked into that thicket, and I lost the track of him. I didn't see him at first. So I texted my buddy Jono, told him what had happened, and he called me on my phone. And we were talking, we were whispering back and forth, trying to explain it to him and what we were going to do. And I looked in that briar patch again, and all of a sudden that buck stood back up. I said, "Oh, John," I said, "I got to go. He's listening to me. He can hear me talking. I got to go." So I hung up the phone, and that buck just stood there and stared at me. He stared at me for 5 minutes, and I wanted to shoot another arrow, but I just knew I couldn't get through all the brush. And I watched him walk off, but when he walked off, it was in slow motion. You could tell that he was really hurting, and he just slowly walked off, and I lost sight of him again. So I didn't see him go down, but I knew that he was really hurting, and I knew that I gut shot him, but the blood looked really good when we got back there. But I didn't see him go down, but I knew he was hurting and just kind of walked the opposite way. I gave him another hour before I even got out of my stand, but I didn't see him get up, and he didn't move. He was only actually about 40 yards from my stand when we found him.
Wow. And so the lessons learned there, I think if that does happen, do absolutely nothing, folks, and just hang in your stand and then, wait a while. Probably talking on the phone didn't help didn't help the situation at that point in time, but just
No, it didn't. When he stood back up, I said, "Man, I gotta go," and I was lucky that he didn't take off running. He just slowly walked away, and that was a lesson learned. Like, I knew I needed to sit in the stand for a while and I knew I had to take my time getting out of there and walk the opposite direction. But that was a lesson learned. Next time you got to shoot a deer, don't get on the cell phone.
Yeah, don't just get the heck out of there. You mark it as best you can. Last place you saw him, and just get the heck out of there, because a couple of people, Judd Cooney told me a long time ago. He says if you hit him at night, you're not quite sure unless you see him dump. Just let him go to the morning. He's not going to go anyplace. But if you start boogering up the bushes or getting the flashlights out and pushing them, you don't know where that deer is going to go. So I've always remembered that.
Yeah, I follow the same motto: when in doubt, back out. When I got down, I didn't even go for my arrow. I didn't even go look for it. They asked me what kind of blood was on it. I said I don't know. I said I didn't go look at it. It was too close to where that deer was. When I got out of my stand, I just walked the opposite direction.
Yeah, that's great. Well, it's great you got friends like that. Now you said you set the stand up in a transition area. Is it a hang on, a climber, or a ladder stand?
It's a hang-on stand. I hung out. I switched to hang-on stands about 2 years ago, so I'm primarily hunting out of hang-on stands now.
Now, how do you decide up in the woods that you guys have, where are you going to set your stands?
Well, it's different for me because I'm a bigger guy. I don't like little trees. Little trees move too much for me, and you're a big guy. You just want to have a big tree. So for me, we found this area, this transition area. The trail was just beaten down, and it's beaten down year round. And knowing that there was a field, it's not our property where this field is, but a farmer always has crops up on this field out in front of me. And we know they bed behind that tree stand. So for me, I just found this big old oak tree, and it's only 5-10 yards off the trail, but that was the only tree I felt comfortable going in. But that's how I found that stand. Now, the rest of the stands that we have up there, we try to go off of deer trails. We've hunted this property for a long time now, so we pretty much have constant stands up there. The one stand, Jono's stand, is at the top of a ridge. The mountain top, it's a great place to put a stand. If you're on top of a ridge, the deer like to run that ridge so they can look down off both sides and see if there's any danger. So finding a stand up on the ridge, it's one of our most productive stands up there. Some of the other stands are off the edge of fields. It's Punxsutawney. There's not a whole lot of food other than acorns, so the deer really tend to gravitate towards the corn fields or a bean field. That's pretty much how we've set up those stands up there.
Now, can you bait in Pennsylvania?
No, we're not allowed to bait.
How about food plots? Is that considered bait?
Not that I'm aware of. We have them off, not right on the edge of the fields. We try to stay, 50 to 100 yards off them. But to my knowledge, that is not illegal to sit on the edge of a field.
Okay. Now, let's talk about your gear, your bow and your arrows, and, talk to me about that.
Well, this year I actually bought a new bow. I was shooting a Bowtech Destroyer. It was a 2010 model. It's a little hard for me to get bows or to shoot them at first because I'm a left-handed shot. But this year I upgraded to a Hoyt Carbon Defiant 34. I wanted to get a longer axle-to-axle bow because I have a 30-inch draw length, and it's set at 70 pounds. I also was shooting the Easton Axis arrows this year, the 6mm arrows. And I was really happy with those. I went to a small diameter arrow this year. It was the first year I've done that. And the broadhead I was using was a NAP Spitfire Double Cross. That was the broadhead I used this year.
And how much shooting do you do, of your bow?
I shoot every day. I try to take 20 shots every day.
365?
Yeah, pretty much. I'm fortunate enough there's an archery range, an archery shop about 20 minutes from my house that has a 20-yard indoor range. My business here where I work, we have a little opening down where our bulk tanks are stored that I can shoot out to 60 yards there. But I shoot as often and as much as I can. I love bow hunting, and I'm kind of particular about my setup, and I always strive for perfection. So I shoot every day, try and take at least 20 shots a day to keep that muscle memory going and to work on my form and try and get the best group of arrows that I can. I feel as a hunter, it's my job to harvest whatever animal I'm hunting, to be the best hunter and be the best shot I can, so that I can put that animal down quickly and ethically.
Let's change it up and go back to women in the outdoors and women hunting. And you said your wife, is getting into archery, or is, an archer. So let's talk about that relationship and the importance of helping her become the best hunter she can.
I believe, we need to get everybody involved in the outdoors, women and especially youth. And my wife, like I said earlier, she's hunted longer than I have, but she was always a rifle hunter. And, I rifle hunt when the season comes around. I know a lot of guys will argue, bow hunting or they don't want to pick up a rifle. And this year she wanted to get into archery hunting. And I was excited to let her get into that and to teach her. And I don't tell her this, but she's kind of my guinea pig for when my kids get older, because I didn't get into archery hunting till late. So I've never dealt with low poundage bows like she has. And, she's enjoying shooting. She got so much better this summer. I could see a huge progress in her shooting from the time we started to when the season came in. And for me, I couldn't be happier with it. It's time that I get this extra time I get to spend with her. A lot of times it's more alone time. We spend a lot of time with our kids, and for just me and her to get away for a couple hours. I always enjoy spending time with her, and to have her in the tree with me, and to hopefully be a part of her first bow kill this year. I couldn't ask for more.
What advice would you have for other guys, for their wife, their girlfriend, about, getting them into the tree stand?
It's, if you're truly passionate about it, it just tends to wear on people. When they see how much enjoyment you get out of it, they naturally become interested in it, or at least my wife did. And the best thing that you can do is not to pressure them. Ask them, hey, is this what you're thinking about? You don't have to go out and buy them a $700 or $800 bow. A lot of times you could find them a used one on Craigslist or eBay just to see if they like it, and just take them out and shoot, and take them to 3D shoots, and just make it fun. I mean, whether it's women or kids, hunting needs to be fun. And if you can show her that shooting a bow is fun, and then once you get, I believe, especially with bow hunting, once you get that deer in, 20 yards or so, I think anybody who's a hunter will just be hooked. It's such an adrenaline rush to have that deer come in and to not know you're there. I mean, when you shoot them with a rifle, they could be 100 yards or more away from you. But the challenge of getting that deer into an acceptable shooting range, I know for me, that's how I got hooked on bow hunting. When I first went out I had rifle hunted and shot a couple of deer with a rifle. But when I had that first deer come in and was, 15 yards away from me, my heart was beating out of my chest. That's probably why the deer ran away. Heard my heart going. But if you want to get your wife or your kids involved, just make it fun. Don't put pressure on them. Teach them, show them how the right way to do it, and just make it fun. I think that's the biggest thing, is to have a good time and not make it pressured. I think once you start pressuring them, whether that was a bad shot or hey, let's go, we have to shoot tonight, I think that's when it becomes fun and they become they're not fun, and that's when they become disinterested.
Thanks for that. And we're at the time of the show. You get a minute or two to get some shout outs, and then we'll wrap the show.
Well, that's great. I've had a great time. It's hard to believe it was already a half hour already. But I'd like to give a shout out to Steve Rocco at Keystone Wild Outdoors for giving me an opportunity to represent Keystone Wild Outdoors. My family, my wife Rachel, my two sons Tanner and Colton, anybody that has a family that hunts, they have to support you. And my wife's support I couldn't ask for more from her. She's letting me, chase a dream of trying to pass on this heritage to different people and to be in the outdoor industry. And, I love her, and, couldn't be happier that she's behind me all the way.
Well, thanks for that. And on behalf of thousands of listeners across North America, thank you so much for being a guest. And we just wish you and your family a Merry Christmas. And can't wait to talk to you next year.
Yeah, thank you again, Bruce, for having me on. It was a blast, and we'll definitely have to get back together with it next year.
Hey, listen up to the next show with Daniel Jackson from Southeast Illinois. Daniel's been down in the Southern Illinois area working, but he loves to hunt. Took up hunting 2 years, and he's killed a buck 2 years in a row. This guy's got some secrets. You're going to want to listen.
Thanks for joining us. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, where you can listen and learn from the experts so you can be more successful on your next hunt. Until next time, listen, learn, and succeed.